Well, everybody, welcome back to the Trig Podcast of Joey and Gosa TV on this lovely Monday night, May 11th, 2020. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to this episode. How are you? If you're watching me on Instagram Live, thank you so much. Make sure that you follow me on Instagram at David Trigg. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure that you comment, subscribe to my channel at David Trigg. If you are watching me on Twitter, or on Twitch or on Periscope, thank you so much for being here. I love all those platforms. And of course, if you're watching me on my website, davidtrigg.com, or on Facebook, on my personal or my public page, over 1,100 followers on my public page and lots of friends on my personal page. Thank you for being here. If you see a 0 on your end or a 1, don't worry. Come in anyway. We may have 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 people all together in all the platforms. Leave me a comment below. Tell me, how are you doing? Tell me what's happening. I'm trying to do something new here this evening, trying to get a iPad working so you can see some of my drawings that I want to use for this training. Talking tonight about how to overcome negativity and negative thoughts, how to overcome your mind when it's stuck in this negative spin cycle. I was just talking to a friend. He was telling me that his mind is dwelling on the negative, that what if this virus comes back? What if even in 2021 we're still all unemployed or losing jobs, or everything's shutting down, or there's another virus and we all die? And even though it may sound funny to us, it's normal. And a lot of people are feeling the same way, worrying and thinking about what could go wrong, right? There is, I think, a very common feeling among many people, regardless of your faith and of your church and not church or whatever. It's not about that. It's about how our biology and our minds and our emotions are under attack right now. And I don't mean just spiritual attack. I just mean attack of this thing that's happening. I always liken it to if let's say, here in SoCal, if the big one had hit and everyone was crying and burying their loved ones, God forbid, right? You wouldn't tell that person that they're being spiritually weak, right? That person who's grieving the loss of their mom or their child. Of course not. You would be very considerate and you would be very kind and you would be grieving along with them. Now, the same is true with all this that's happening. We can't blame each other for not having enough faith or having Satan attack you or you giving in to darkness. And all those things are in play, of course. I mean, there's no doubt. But we have to be compassionate to each other and use our tools to be able to overcome that negative spin cycle. And so I want to wait a few more minutes. If you, on your end, you only see a 1 maybe on Facebook, or you only see a 0 on your end in terms of how many people are watching, remember that I have 7 platforms going. So there are many other people than just the 1 on your end. So I want to just welcome you. Leave me a comment below. Tell me, where are you watching me from? Tell me, are you at home? Are you in bed? Are you on the couch? Are you walking your dog? Tell me, how are you doing? And we're going to just wait a few more seconds here to get into the training. Let me show you this second screen that I have here. This is what I use when I have guests. And so I'm trying to, on this side here next to me, to bring up my iPad that I have connected here to show you a training that I want to walk you through on how to overcome that negative spin cycle that we can get into. And maybe you're not in that spin cycle today, but you might be there tomorrow. It's normal right now with all that's happening all over the world. My friend was even saying that he wishes he could leave the planet because that's how it feels, right? You can't even go to another part of the country or another part of the world to escape from this. It's almost like this very desperate feeling that we get if you want to run away from this. Where exactly do you go? And so that's where we have to calm our minds and we have to think about things in a different way, both obviously spiritually, but also using our tools. And as you know, I have spent maybe 10,000 hours learning about psychology, about the way our mind works, about neuroscience and about how the left brain and the right brain work together during these times. In my second life, I'll come back as a therapist because I truly enjoy helping people understand how we think and how we react to stress based on your childhood, based on different stresses that we face, based on maybe things that you've seen in the past. My guess is all of us have experienced stress before, of course. And my guess is that we're tempted to go back to our old habits these days. Now, some people, of course, they may be more practical and they may not be dealing with any sort of mental concern, but perhaps they're becoming workaholics. You know, they want to just work and clean and do to kind of mask that concern. Others get angry, they get frustrated. And so they might be yelling at people at work or becoming perfectionist or maybe being very hard on other people. And then others that maybe are more of the mental health of the head types, and we'll get into that here in a second. They may process things in their minds, and so their minds right now, our minds might be deceiving us. You know, the Bible says that our hearts deceive us, but I have learned through all of my training in psychology, neuroscience, and all the research that I've done, the data shows that it's not just our hearts that deceive us, but sometimes our mind deceives us. Sometimes our gut deceives us. And so we have to be aware. I'm just waiting a few more minutes here till we get a nice audience. Remember that even if you have only one person on your end, you know, you only see a one on your Facebook or on your Instagram or wherever, that we have about 5 or 6 different platforms going right now. And so I want to just encourage you all to stick around and to share this broadcast with someone that you know needs the encouragement of neuroscience, of the research that I've done, of psychology. I'm not a therapist, but I've done a lot of research in this area, in this line of work. And so I want to share those things with you here tonight. I'm going to just wait a few more minutes. I think we have a person here on Twitch. We have a few people on Facebook and maybe on YouTube and on Periscope and Instagram and all the rest. I want to just thank you for that. Yes, of course. So you have, as I said, the spiritual component, and then we also have the psychology component, and then we have the neuroscience, or sometimes just simply our childhood, what our bodies have experienced. And so you have this awareness that I believe we have to have. And maybe someone out there, I know I used to be definitely more into just kind of knowledge. And as I matured more, I began to realize the work of the enemy. And so there's constantly this, you know, it says in the Bible that Jesus grew both in wisdom and in strength. And so Jesus himself grew in just his body, as a human. And that has nothing to do with spirit, right? That has everything to do with just how we handle stress, how we cope with loss, with grief, with all that's happening. And then, of course, the spiritual component, which deals with the darkness, with light, with all of these things that we have to sometimes be aware of and kind of understand and go and become wise of these things. So all of this is very important. And I want to just give it a few more minutes here on this live stream to see if we get more people to join us so that we can, I'm just checking out to see what's going on here behind me, in front of me. But yeah, exactly. And that's why, speaking of that, Russ, yes. So that's why in terms of faith and religion, there is, as I'm going to explain, this merging that has to happen of spirit, of body, and of soul. And so regardless of faith or no faith, religion or not, really, I'm not even talking about religion. I'm talking about becoming aware of our spirit and becoming aware of what's happening inside. And sometimes we, as I'm going to explain here in a second, we can tend to be very logical. And guess what? Right now, logic isn't getting us far, right? Logic makes no sense right now. This makes no sense. None of this stuff is logical. And some people may go to religion as a way to even escape their own panic. And I think that, of course, religion, spirituality, faith is very important. And I would say that as far as the training that I bring, that spirituality and faith and soul work is a must. I think that in these times, I have atheist friends, I have agnostic friends, I have secular friends. They are, they're trying to figure out, like, how does this make sense in light of my lack of faith or my lack of religion? And so, but again, I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about necessarily having a certain set of beliefs. I have my own beliefs that are very useful, and I think that transcendence is a part of the solution, but I want to talk about this here in a second. Just waiting a few more seconds here to see if anybody else joins us on the live stream, whether on Periscope, on Twitch, on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube. Just giving the stream a few more seconds. And I also want to see if I can get my, as I was saying, hold on again a second. No, it's not. So I want to, on this particular screen that you're seeing, I'm trying to get my iPad to work so that you can see a drawing that I've been working on to explain a little bit about kind of what I'm talking about in terms of how to get out of this spin cycle that many people, many of us catch ourselves in. So let's see, I don't see this working here, my iPad. So I'm going to try something else so that you guys can see my drawing, and hopefully this drawing will be of help to you in terms of the neuroscience and the kind of the data that's out there regarding how the mind works, and then combine it or connect it with spirit and also with just our family of origin, some of our, just how we grew up. So let me see if I can show this on the screen here. So let's see here. I think I can do this, a few things. I'm going to show you this particular note here. I think I have it here, so that's positive. Okay, so I think you see a little scribble there. Let me actually do something else here. Okay. Make that a little bigger, perhaps, if I can. Let me see if it'll let me. Okay, so there you can kind of now see a little bit of this drawing that I want to show you that may make sense or may not, but I'll try to explain it. So, okay, so at the bottom there, you see that it says head, and then at the left, you see it says gut and heart. So there are three, according to neuroscience, psychology. I definitely also am well-versed in the Enneagram, which is another kind of, it's a little deeper than personality stuff, but so let me just read a little bit of the comments here that said, I mean, life is a culmination experience. We are who we are because of what we have been through. Yeah, exactly. So that would be definitely be kind of what people call it, the nurture, right? Or nature. Like, we are who we are because of the experiences that people have. Exactly. So let me get into some of this, and I might answer some of those questions. So now, in neuroscience and in psychology, we talk about, again, I'm not a therapist, but just from all that I've studied and all that I have learned through 10 years of research and practicing this myself, we know that there are three centers of intelligence. The head, and this, all the religions, all the psychology literature supports this. There's the head, or the head types. There are the gut types here on the left. And then there are the heart types. So gut, heart, and heads. Now, of course, we are all three. You obviously have a gut. Now, a gut could also be called the soma, the body. It's, speaking of experiences, is what Russ here was talking about in terms of experiences. So that would be the body, what the body has experienced in terms of trauma, culture, the country you grew up in, the family of origin that you are part of, what language you speak, all of that, which it's your body, your soma. This is the Latin word. That's what we would call the gut center. And so there are people that when you say to them, well, just use your head, they'll be like, well, I'm not really led by my head. I'm led by my gut or by instinct, others would call it. Maybe others would even call it intuition, although intuition might be more of a head type, actually. Gut are people that you would consider doers. Now, of course, again, they have a heart, they have a head, of course, but they might be more repressed, and we'll get into repression here in a second, in terms of their heart and in terms of their head. So under stress, just talking about what's happening here with the virus worldwide, right now, their gut's saying there's a conspiracy out there. You know, the government is doing this. This is the fault of this person. And so anger is how the gut center of intelligence tends to express or show up in the world. That's maybe their mode of operandi. It's they will show up through anger and frustration. And again, there's no judgment here like that's a bad thing. That's just simply the emotion that the gut centers, or those who have that lead with their gut, who they would like to consider themselves people that they listen to their gut. You know, have you ever heard people that say, I listen to my gut more than my heart? They may even say, I don't even trust my heart. They may even say logic. Who needs logic? I trust my gut. So these people right now, they are very practical. They are the ones that are making things happen. And they are dealing with repressed anger. Some of them, now if we're thinking the Enneagram, which is what I am more versed in, the 8, 9s, and the 1s, the 8s are the ones that will express that more easily. The 9s, they will suppress it. They are what we call gut repressed. Even though they have anger inside of them, they may not want to give in to that or acknowledge it. It's an invisible enemy. So when there's no way to put a face, exactly. So let me just keep going here with the training. Thank you for your comments always. Thank you so much. So you have the gut types. Now, next to that, you have the heart center of intelligence. So these are the people that would say that they listen to their hearts. That they are people that they show up in the world through their emotions. And we all know people like that, right? You wouldn't say that they're emotional. We all have emotions, but you definitely have some people that would say, I don't listen to my emotions. I don't trust my emotions. I remember a training by this spiritual leader who definitely wasn't a heart type, who calls feelings fickle feelings. And there's a lot of truth in that, right? That we can't trust our feelings. But I would say that for many people, they show up in the world through their heart. I mean, you just think of artists. Just think of maybe that traditional mom who is very caring or hospitable. Again, I'm just stereotyping a little bit here. It could be a male. It doesn't have to be an artist. It could be a CPA. But you could begin to maybe think of your parents or your children or yourself and say, you know, I am a heart type. I show up in the world through my heart, through love, through the imagination, through what could be. Now, another way to look at the heart types are people who are thinking about the future. And maybe the gut types, you could say they live in the moment. And so the heart types, when under stress, they tend to experience a lot of issues of shame and feeling worthless. That maybe their love isn't being reciprocated, or that their love isn't understood, or that they're not unique enough in the world, or that they're doing so much to achieve and accomplish, and yet no one seems to acknowledge them, or they can't seem to get ahead. And so back to the Enneagram, combining some of the neuroscience with personality and spiritual theology, the heart types, which normally are what they call in the Enneagram the 2s, 3s, and 4s, the 3s are the ones that repress their heart. And so even though the 3s tend to be or are at the center of the heart triad, or the center of intelligence of heart types, they are achievers. And so they act like doers. They act like gut types, but really they are heart types. They just repress those feelings in order to accomplish greatness. So some of the heart types may not even seem like heart types. They may almost seem heartless at times because they are so in their body. They want to get things done, or maybe they're in their head so much. And so the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s are what normally are called the heart centers or the heart triad. And they're the ones that deal with issues of worthlessness, of shame. And so right now, people that are in the heart triad may be feeling a lot of shame that they can't do the things they want to do, that they can't love the way they want to love, that they don't have the faith that they wish they had, speaking of spirituality and faith. And the 2s, certainly, who they call the 2s, the helpers. Right now, it's tough to be a helper, right? When we're stuck at home, unless maybe you are in the medical field and maybe you have ways that you can help your neighbors. Or remember at the beginning of this whole thing, how everyone was into helping people? Now it's more political and more anger. Now the gut's coming out. You could almost say that at first it started with heart, and now it's moving into gut, and perhaps we're going to move into head here in the next season. And so the heart types, and again, you might relate to what I'm saying. You might say, yeah, I'm a heart type. They tend to show up in the world through empathy, through compassion, through achievement. And but when push comes to shove, the shadow side, as we call it, tends to be a feeling of shame or worthlessness. And so then you have at the bottom of this beautiful triangle here the head types. And I know that sounds funny, but I don't mean that they have anything wrong with their heads. They're actually the logic corner, I guess, of this triangle here. These are the people that are led by their head. Don't tell them to think with their heart, to be led by their heart. Don't ask them, what does your gut say? Because they'll be like, I don't even know if I have a gut or if I have a heart. Of course they do. Of course you might be in this type. The statistics are that most people in the world are actually in the head triad. And so, if you think of certainly the Enlightenment, I mean, that's what the Enlightenment in the Greek culture, they, esteemed. I mean, you think of America, right, of the U.S. I mean, this is what here in the U.S. we esteem as the highest experience is knowledge, right, is wisdom. In the Bible, again, you could, in any religion, but certainly in the Bible, you could find all of these different centers in the Bible. You could say, that the heart, that wherever your heart is, there your treasure will be. And so that the point here is that God is love, right? That Jesus is love. If you are in the gut triad, you could say that, very much the atonement and Jesus dying on a cross is very much you. Him saying that religion is not to just be in church or to be in prayer or meditation, but it's to tend to the needs of the orphans and the widows. And so you can see in the Bible that you have definitely a huge sense of gut theology. And then, of course, the head is very important because that's where logic takes place. That's where the mind resides. That's where thought and reason lies. And right now, those people that are in the head triad, in the center of intelligence, I think are maybe the ones that are struggling the most because this is so illogical. This makes no sense. And because your heart repressed and your gut repressed, your body is nowhere to be found. These are the types of people that you could say that they're almost like a head walking around like a zombie without a body. Maybe you have felt like a zombie these last 8 weeks or 2-3 months, right? Like you can't even find your heart. Like, do you have a heart? I don't mean fear. Fear is what the head types deal with the most. And so in terms of the shadow side or the under stress, the head types will struggle with fear and anxiety. And so because they can't solve things, they can't resolve, they can't use their genius logic to make sense of the data, of the numbers. Why are the numbers increasing here and decreasing there? What's going on in China? What's going on in the US? Because the numbers don't add up. Then the head types, those in the center of intelligence of head, they tend to deal with fear and anxiety. And so these are the people right now that are catastrophizing. Like I said in the beginning, my friend who's saying, I want to leave the planet because in his mind, he can't figure this out. He can't go to another country, to another part of the world to escape this. And so the only reasonable thing that he can come up with is to leave the planet. Of course, that's unreasonable, but that is what head types will deal with is, unreasonable catastrophizing and what we tend to call just that spin cycle of negativity, just thinking of all the negative things and giving into that fear and not being able to find your heart. You can't even touch the things you love. You can't access the things you love, the things you have a passion for. Normally you have a passion for children or for the elderly or for art, and you're like, I can't even find that because your head is in the clouds. You are in a spin cycle, and you can't find your body or your gut because the head types often are gut repressed and heart repressed. And under stress, certainly, they tend to want to give in to what their body is saying. And so you have a lot of people with anxiety right now, or fear, depression, that their bodies are falling apart. They might be sleeping a lot. They might be feeling like they have headaches, and they have a virus, and they have a cold, and they have cancer, and they have some horrible disease, and the virus is going to come back in 3 weeks, and in 3 months, and in 3 years. And so, this catastrophizing can be very, very fast and furious. And so the head types, that's kind of where they're at right now. So I hope that these centers of intelligence, this brief overview, can help you understand maybe where you're at, who you are, and how we all tend to deal with these things so that we can learn kind of what to do. So in another training, and maybe I'll do a little bit here now, of course, what I want to do is show you or teach you what to do, right? How to then be able to overcome your tendencies, or kind of what is natural to us sometimes. So let me go through that here just briefly. So, excuse me. So let's just talk about head, because it seems to me from all the research that I've done and just talking to people and friends that is where many people are stuck, is in their heads. And of course, that's the topic, or that was the title that I gave this particular stream, is how to get out of your head, or how to overcome negativity. So let me just go through this very briefly here. So when it comes to the head types, if you would identify as that person, again, you have a heart, you have a gut, but you very proudly consider yourself a logical person, a very intelligent person, a very enlightened person, a kind of a genius, someone who is things come easily to you, right? But right now you're like, man, where did all that intelligence go? Well, it didn't go anywhere. It's just leading you down the wrong path. It's leading you to the gut. See, so when the head is stuck in negativity, it leads you down this path where I have these red X's, where your body or your soma begins to react to your thoughts. We all know that our bodies, like the Bible says, is a temple of the Holy Spirit. What is that really saying? It's that the body is going to respond to your head. We all know this, to your thoughts, right? All doctors, all psychologists, all neuroscience will tell you that it all starts in the mind, right? That's why the mindfulness movement and meditation and yoga and all of this stuff about the law of attraction and the manifestation is all about thinking the right thoughts. The Bible says that we have the mind of Christ. And so all this is very much across all the different wisdom literature that's out there, because it's true. But right now, if your head is believing a lie, and like someone said earlier, when Satan is coming in and messing with your head, telling you all these horrible things, then your body will begin to disintegrate. That's where the head naturally goes. It controls the body. And so you're experiencing laziness, procrastination, depression, anxiety, a lack of movement. You don't want to even get out of the house. You're afraid of going to the store. Fear, anxiety, depression. Maybe it's your fear showing up as an addiction, drinking, as smoking too much, or pornography, or probably not anger, because that's not really what the head types tend to do. The head types tend to give into fear and anxiety and catastrophizing and negativity and all this loss mentality. And so you have to be aware that if you're in that spin cycle right now, that is a lie. You're living in a lie. You're going down this path here of the red exes that I have here. And even though it seems so real to you, and you would swear to your parents, to your mom, to your dad, to your partner, your wife, your husband, that you really are dying, it's your head controlling your body. Now, what's the solution? You have to get in touch with your heart. And then your heart, I should have another arrow here going from your heart to your gut. You have to, I would say the fastest way, and all that I've studied, all the research, all the data shows, the quickest way to get out of your head is to get in touch with your heart. Now, what does that mean? Or how do you do that? Well, that means you have to get in touch with what you love. Remember how I said at the beginning how sometimes when you're in your head, you forget that you love your mom, your parents, maybe that cause that you're into. It could be your faith. It could be a nonprofit. It could be music. During that, when we give into our heads, we lose that connection to our heart. We can't even find it. So the fastest way is to get in touch with what you love, with a person, with a cause. And so this is where maybe you focusing on the name of somebody that you love is so important. Maybe, the name of your mom, maybe if she's passed away or she's living. We just celebrated Mother's Day here in the U.S. Maybe if that works for you, if your mom isn't what works for you, then you have to find what does. But let's say your mom, that that tender image that most of us have of our moms, if that connects you with your heart, then what I want for you to do is for you to look at that picture of your mom, is to dwell. The Bible says to dwell upon these things, is to meditate, is to think, is to discipline your mind to be thinking. Discipline your mind 5, 6, 7 times every hour. Yes, every hour on that picture of your mom. Let's say it's not your mom, maybe it's your kids. For a lot of parents, of course, that's what connects them with her heart is their kids, right? Thank you so much, Melissa. I love you too. So think of your children. Get that picture of your love, of your child that you love, and focus on that picture. It doesn't have to be a picture. I'm just kind of starting with pictures. Think of that picture of your child, of your grandma, of your parents. Maybe it's a grandparent. For me, it often is a picture or a memory of my grandparents. I was raised by my grandparents, as some of you who know me, and so when I am in my gut or in my head, or when these things are kind of just spinning, I force myself would be a way to put it. I discipline myself. This is where the spiritual disciplines come in. And this is why this is a spiritual journey and a spiritual formation process. I then move towards, I move away from my head. I move away from what my gut's telling me. And I try to move towards, not towards doing, not yet. That's the third step, but towards heart, towards what you love, towards who you love. Very important to consider, who do you love? And don't go to the things that you're supposed to love, because that love is there. It's just, it might be suppressed right now. Keep searching until you find that person. That it could be a pet. It could be your dog. It could be your cat. It could be a picture, as I said. It could be an instrument, a guitar or a piano or a house or a corner of your house. You know exactly what puts you in that mindset or in that heart of love when your emotions get engaged. And how do you know when your emotions are engaged? Well, you feel sad. I mean, tears of joy. It might start as sadness because you've lost that loved one. But don't be afraid of sadness. Sadness, if we're moving from head to heart, is the pathway to joy. That's why the Bible says, "Though there's pain in the night, gozo, joy comes in the morning." And so don't be afraid of sadness if you are a head type. Sadness, for a lot of artists and a lot of people that are very logical, or maybe they are, very loyal people or very adventurous types, this is a time for you to get in touch with that person that you love the most, your children. For me, as I was saying, my grandmother, when I get into my head too much, or my gut's betraying me or hurting me, or hurts, meaning, which is what often happens with anxious types, your gut hurts, right? Or your shoulders or your head or your heart, all these, things about anxiety. you have to then, for me, I moved to my grandmother because I lost her 20 years ago. And yet she raised me. And every time that I think of my grandmother, I get into my sadness, not sadness as a negative thing, but into my emotions, my positive, my heart. I'm not afraid of emotions. I love emotions because they get me out of my head, out of my gut. And they lead me to love. I start thinking of all the great things that she did for me. So the same thing for you. You have to move towards the things that you love. Now, for some, it might be your faith. Now, obviously, faith is more of a head exercise because, it's something that, like the Bible says, right now we cannot clearly see. We have to believe with eyes of faith, right? And so for some, it might be the picture of Jesus. Maybe it could be a place where you connect with God. It could be a worship song, a verse that connects you with your heart, not with your gut per se, not just with knowledge of God, but with your emotions, where you feel that he really is a good shepherd. And again, because of the Enlightenment and then the American church, we've thrown out anything that's emotional out with Satan for some reason. And yet, for all of those people who are heart types, that is the worst thing you could tell the heart types, is to throw away your emotion or don't bring your heart into church, right? That's how you show up in the world. What you have to do is like the Bible says, purify that heart. How? When you're in your head or when your gut's betraying you, you have to go to that person, to that verse, to that, in my case, to my grandma, or to, another beautiful way that I connect with my heart is I think of our son, because he's a boy, and obviously me as his dad, and my dad was David, and so on. We're all musicians. I have all these connections that just immediately. And so what do? This is a third step. Once my heart is engaged, once I feel those pitter patters, that feeling of love, maybe of compassion, then I move to my gut, meaning to my body. So with our son, I will go into his room just next door and I will go hug him. And right now, he has like hair up to the ceiling like we all do. So I'll just mess with his hair. He's 16. He's taller than me, stronger than me, 16-year-old males, right? And I hug him and I hold him, and he lets me, he's tender enough that he's not like, get away from me, Dad. So he's still young enough. And plus, I've always been this way with him. He's a son, he's a boy, right? And yet he's learning from me the value of being in your gut or in your body out of love. And so when I do that, it just, my blood pressure just decreases. They say that babies, the way that they know who their mother is by their sound and by their touch. And so when a child is born, if you think back on if you're a mom or a dad, when your child was born, that touch when you held your son, your daughter, it did something to them. They physically just move and they feel so happy because there's something powerful in touch. I was listening to an interview with the stylists that are entrepreneurs and business owners. And right now, they're having to redo their whole business plans, meaning people that cut hair and all. And they were saying how what they've noticed is when the client is in the chair, they open up. It's almost like being at a bar, right? And that's obviously more of a body function. You're losing control, and so you open up. But when you're at the salon, maybe you've experienced this, and you are letting someone touch your head, and it's a controlled environment. It's a business transaction. It's safe. You kind of understand what's happening and why you're letting this woman, mostly women, men could be, touch your head. Then what happens to you? The statistics are, the data says that we open up because of the touch. And so my point is that when you're in your head, you have to move to your heart. That's the discipline. And then you move to your gut, to your body. You act on it in an appropriate and in a loving way. Let's say, as I said, you hug your son, or you you go on a date with your wife. Right now, of course, we can't do any of that stuff, but you write that song. You grab your guitar, or if you knit, if you fix cars, if you're a man or a woman, and you're going to go fix that car, but you're doing it out of love. There's a spiritual connection, something beautiful that happened in you where you are doing it out of love. Well, I hope that helps. That's what I had for you tonight. I have so much more that I want to share with you regarding different centers of intelligence. I would love to go through the gut types and then the heart types and how they can overcome fear and anxiety. But for now, we'll leave it at that. Make sure that you leave me a comment below, say hello, share this broadcast with your friends if you found this helpful. If not, delete it and unsubscribe. But if you found this helpful, then I'm here every day, streaming live daily, 2-3 times a day, to bring you content that is in 3 areas: that is spiritually powerful, that is filled with psychology and with the knowledge of personality and of the body and all these things that I'm talking about, and third, that also has a knowledge of business and marketing, because I really love business, marketing, and being able to connect with people and provide value to others. So thank you so much, guys, for being here. Share this broadcast. And I want to say one more thing. I have 3 or 4 guests lined up for Gozo TV here over the next 2 weeks, including therapists, including a school counselor, including a nutritionist, a fitness expert, and a few other surprises. So make sure that you subscribe, tune back. Here, the best place where you can find me, Facebook is okay, although it's hard to find all the other videos, but I would say go to my YouTube page. It's probably the best place where you can find me. You can then see all the different videos there and all the different interviews that are coming up over the next few weeks here on Gozo TV, so that you can live a life of joy amidst this transition that is happening, this change that we're all experiencing these days. Thank you again. I'll see you next time.